Yep, it's a pretty horrible thing. You know, somebody kill your whole family. You know, your mother, your wife, your three sons. Under our definition in Montgomery County, a cold case is any case that leaves our homicide unit, and either the investigator, the primary investigator, has left the unit, or the case is 3 or more years old and still unsolved. It's not technically a cold case because it's closed. There's a warrant on file for Brad Bishop. It's cold in the sense that he's never been caught. Detective Brian Stafford. I'm with the Montgomery County Police Department. I'm with our Missing Persons and Cold Case Squad, and I'm assigned to the Bradford Bishop murders case. The bodies were discovered in the afternoon of March 2nd in North Carolina. The family was known to be alive. He was last seen on the evening of March 1st. So that's the time when the murders occurred. All of the family members were murdered inside the house, we believe, and then were transported, we believe, in the family's station wagon to North Carolina, area outside of Columbia, North Carolina. If you've ever been to the Outer Banks, you drove right through Columbia to get there. They were buried in a shallow grave. The area was set on fire. Some of the bodies were partially burned. Bradford Bishop was seen later that day in Jacksonville, North Carolina. He was actually at a sporting goods store purchasing a pair of tennis shoes. And after that, we lose track of him. Nobody ever saw him again. But the vehicle that he was driving, the station wagon, was recovered actually in Tennessee in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And the vehicle was recovered, I'm trying to remember the exact date now, I think it was about on the 18th. But the witnesses at the time said they thought the vehicle had been there since maybe the 2nd or the 3rd of March. And that's the last trace we have of Bradford Bishop. He purchased a gas can that, you know, we don't know if it's the same one because they're not serialized, but he purchased a gas can like this. He purchased a small sledgehammer and purchased some gasoline. So we think this is the gas can that he purchased. It was found on scene where the bodies were buried and where the fire was started. So that's the gas can. And they lifted a print off of this, and that print, at the time, they identified that print as being Brad Bishop's. So this is the pitchfork that was found on the scene, and yeah, that's the shovel that has the sticker. So again, you can see this is kind of charred a little bit, and that's from the fire that he lit down there. The dog lived. We know the dog was running around.
So what happened to the dog?
No idea. We think it, the last time, the dog may have been seen at Great Smoky Mountains National Park, where the car was abandoned.
He may have taken
he took the dog with him, because there were bloody dog footprints in the car. People who saw him at the State Department that day, you know, the day that he was last there, the day he murdered his family, nobody remarks that there was anything strange about him. You know, the last guy who saw him said he left. He complained that he was getting the flu, which is why nobody at the State Department missed him. You know, he didn't come to work the next day, right? This is a Monday, so he doesn't come to work the next day. Nobody thinks anything about it because last time they talked to him, he said, "I think I'm getting the flu." So they thought he was homesick. Nobody, for whatever reason, nobody missed the kids at school, and you know, nobody reported them. It wasn't until a week later, it was on the 8th, that a neighbor called in and said, "Hey, the mail's kind of piling up. Nobody's picked up the newspapers. You might want to send somebody out here." So the police went out, knocked on the door. Nobody answered. They made entry into the house to check on the family and found a crime scene. The closest I thought we were was a sheriff's department down in Georgia called in and said, "Hey, you might want to look at this guy." And it was in 1981, I think. They had a a homeless guy who was hit by, or they think was a homeless guy, was hit by a car in their jurisdiction. And they were never able to identify him.
He was killed.
Yeah. So they were never able to identify this guy. So what they did was, like, you know, small town people would do, is they took up a collection, they buried him in the graveyard at the church, and sort of forgot all about him. But the sheriff saw one of the TV shows on Bishop, looked at the picture of the dead guy from the autopsy, and it looked a lot like that picture on the right up there of Brad Bishop. I mean, a lot like him. Enough so that we actually had the body exhumed and took DNA, and it wasn't him. But that was the closest one, because in that one you were looking at a picture from 1981, comparing it to a picture from like 1975, 76, and they looked very, very, very close.
We're here at Hope Floats, which is where they do the suspension therapy, and this is one of their common rooms. And the whole gist is that you basically go in and you float for 1 hour and you think about your life because you're not feeling anything else. And there's a little shower at the corner, and I'm more than a little terrified.
So this is our tank room. We have 3. What you do is you come in, rinse off in the shower before. You'll have about 3 minutes to do that, and then your session will start. You'll step in here, your head will go to the back, and just shut the door behind you. Once you're in there, you'll hear 10 minutes of meditation music, then the rest will be silent, and then at the end, you'll hear chimes. Those chimes are your indication to get out and shower again.
It's not going to be as bad as I think it's going to be.
I know, it's going to be terrible.
We're going to go in. Oh, what should we like? Okay.
It was like minor.
It's the weirdest experience of my life. Not
It was. I also felt really weird being naked.
Yeah,
Like just
weird.
floating naked.
Oh, that was great.
Hello and welcome to How to Sound Smart. I'm your host, Stella Green, and I'm going to tell you something that may shock you. In the pageant that is the casual social situation, it's important to remember that your conversational partners are really more your conversational rivals. That's right, everybody. Conversation is in fact a contest, and at the first sign of a factual error, the shark starts circling. See how I mixed metaphors just now? This was a conversation. That would have been the end of me. That's why today's lesson is keep it brief, because the less time you spend talking, the less time they have to realize that your knowledge of any given topic essentially amounts to trivia. To help you master the art of not talking for a very long time, rather than give you a lot of information about one topic, I'm going to give you the key facts about 3 topics. The theme? Debunked scientific theories. Just say one, say it quick, and remember, you're on a battlefield. With sharks. Spontaneous generation theory. The initial question that sparked this theory was, where do maggots and rotting meat come from? And the perhaps unduly resounding answer from the scientific community was, thin air. Like, literally nowhere. Circa 300 BCE, Aristotle observed that if meat was left out, maggots would appear in it. Definitely not understanding that maggots eventually mature into flies, and possibly not understanding that they can, like, move. He believed them to be generating spontaneously. Aristotle determined that some creatures had the ability to just sort of pop, and then they're alive. More intellectually put, that life can appear out of nowhere. Taking this idea and just running with it, during the 1600s, a scientist by the name of John Baptiste von Helmont put out what can only be described as spontaneous generation recipes. For example, how to make mice. First, find an open container. Then add a few grains of wheat and some dirty shirts. Don't have dirty shirts? Don't worry. These can be substituted for dirty rags. Now let these sit for 21 days, and when you come back, mice. Don't like mice? How about scorpions? To make a scorpion, first get a brick. Next, carve a hollow into that brick. Then fill that hollow with basil and cover the whole mess with another brick. Now you're going to want to let that sit for a few days so the basil fumes get a chance to leaven, and then you have a nice fresh scorpion with which to do whatever one does with a scorpion. Now I don't want to harp on spontaneous generation theory too much because I understand that theories get disproven every day and everyone's just doing their best and all that, but do scorpions even like basil? Spontaneous human combustion. As you may or may not, but definitely should know, oxygen is involved in breathing. Oxygen is also involved in combustion, and when we discovered this around the late 1700s, we were faced with the burning question, how is oxygen a part of both combustion and breathing? Well, it's just gotta be that we're, like, full of fire, right? Like that there is a slow but steady combustion reaction taking place inside of all of us at all times that has hitherto gone unnoticed, right? Well, the scientists of yesteryear sure seem to think so, and this gave rise to the idea that should hot temper or fever flare up in one's person, they could just zing, go up in flames. Theories for how spontaneous combustion occurs range from the plausible, like static electricity buildup, to Larry Arnold. Mr. Arnold believed that there was a subatomic particle called a pyroton that could interact with cells to create an explosion. Now, I know this sounds a little far-fetched, but remember, fire is complex, and if you throw in there the idea of atoms, it's understandable how someone could still think this back in 1895. Oh, yeah, no. 1995. This theory was actually published in 1995, by which point we were several decades deep into the study of subatomic particles. We had email. It wasn't like a thing yet, but we had it. We knew what was in an atom, Larry Arnold. There is no excuse to be made for the pyroton. I also don't know how I got this, because I thought I was alone in this. Is it this library? Vampires spread plague. We didn't understand fire, we didn't understand where scorpions came from, and we sure as heck didn't understand how decomposition worked. Let's set the scene. It's sometime during the Middle Ages, and you're on an island near Venice. Even though it's Venice, it's still the Middle Ages, so you're not having a great time. On this particular night, you and your buddy are carrying your recently deceased old Aunt So-and-so out to your local mass tomb. Again, this is the Middle Ages, so this is all pretty standard. That is until you open up that tomb. Inside, you find that, to your horror, almost all of the bodies have mouths drenched in... Oh my gosh, is that blood? Well, everyone at the time was pretty sure it was, and assuming the bodies hadn't been buried that way, that could only mean one thing. Vampires. The dead are rising! They're going out at night and feasting on the living! They must be the ones spreading the plague all over the gosh darn place! No, no, and no. It turned out that the dark red fluid was a dark red herring, or just a normal red herring. Yes, it was in fact not the blood of vampire victims. It was much worse than that. You see, when human bodies decay, their stomachs release what is called purge fluid, which is this lovely blackish red ooze that spills up out of the innards of corpses and leaks out of their mouths and or noses, usually and. The myth/scientific theory, pretty much tomato during the Middle Ages, went on to say that before vampires could exit their not-so-final resting places, they had to first chew through their burial shrouds. This idea came from the holes that purge fluid would wear in the cloth shrouds, making them look chewed on. Before a vampire is strong enough to chew through their shroud, all you have to do for protection is wear a shirt. That was a joke. This one isn't. If you're looking for a fix later down the line, cram a brick in their mouths. It seems to me that science has historically put more stock in the power of bricks than they were perhaps due. That concludes this episode of How to Sound Smart. Remember today's lesson? Keep it brief. And in that spirit, we're done.
I must meet the expectations of the stereotype because I'm black. Because I'm black, my morals and standards diminish by the shades of the pigment of my skin, and I must accept it. I must accept the label they mentally stamp across my forehead every time I pass by them or they pass by me. Because I'm black, I'm incapable of having a stable relationship, and all I do is listen to rap. But did you forget that rap means rhythm and poetry? Because I'm black, I spend money that I don't have, and please, 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 save me when I'm drowning, because don't forget that black people can't swim, and black people are illiterate, and black women are temperamental mistresses who hunger for money and designer clothing from the men that should spoil them. Hi. My name is Keisha, or anything that rhymes with Isha, Lakeisha, Letitia, Felicia, Sharkeisha. Cause you see, black people don't speak well, cause if I should speak well and dress properly, that would make me white. And since we're all color here, I think that I'd prefer to be red. Red because it means to be fierce, it means to fight, and it means that I, a black girl, would not live up to this stereotype.
So I was waiting in a doctor's office. What is this new terminology in office? In office, you have a desk, you have a telephone, you sit at a computer, you drink coffee. A doctor, what does a doctor do? Sits there, pokes you a few times, leaves and charges you. And all of a sudden, this is considered an office. In no office am I ever told to take off my pants. At least we start considering my bathroom an office, my bedroom an office, the changing room an office. According to a doctor, everything is considered an office. A closet here, an eye chart. There you go, an office. Give me a break. So there I was in the waiting room, trying to enjoy myself. I noticed the bathroom key hanging from the wall. Why is it that there needs to be a bathroom key? They think without a key that every 5 minutes I'll be going to the bathroom, constantly using the toilet, constantly washing my hands. I understand the concerned people not in the building will use the bathrooms designated for tenants of the building. Several times a day, as I walk past office buildings, I think to myself, damn Beacon Management Services, you think you own the world, you think you own everything. I'll use your bathroom, not one bathroom, every one of them. I'll make sure to flush twice and use several paper towels. Great Lakes will be exhausted as I turn on every faucet just for the fun of it. Take that. Sometimes in these offices, you have to ask for the bathroom key like a kindergartner. I'm surprised they don't require that I go with a bathroom buddy. At least I drown myself. I also just happened to notice the water cooler, and the accompanying cups. Of course, it would be such a tragedy if I were to be given a flat-bottom cup. Every doctor's office I go to, a conical cup. These doctors, they have no consideration for physics, no consideration as to the fact that a conical cup does not rest on, a table. Every place you go in the waiting room, a table. Here a table with a flower pot on it, there a table with a clock on it, another table, another table. They make mazes out of these rooms, constantly placing tables around. These doctors, they have a furniture fetish. But there you get a cup that can rest on one of these tables. I have to travel around with a mug just so I can rest my water on the table. People ask me, why do you have a mug? Why are you constantly walking around with a mug? These idiots, they should know why. Talking of liquids, allow me a brief tangent, if you will. What is it with drinking in this town? By town, I mainly speak of Bethesda. I know we have a large following at Quince Orchard High School, but you're just going to have to employ your imaginations. People walk around on the street carrying cups. It's too risky. People with hot beverages, coffee, tea, walking around. Order your drink and drink it. Don't walk around with it like some big shot, big multitaskers we have walking around drinking beverages. I hope each one of them spills their coffee and burns their hands. Then they will learn to stop carrying around these drinks. After several epochs of waiting, the nurse finally calls out, "Michael Lerner, the doctor is ready to see you." Have they ever considered that I may not be ready? When is the last time they asked me, "Michael, are you ready to see the doctor?" I'm the patient. I'm the one paying money to see this individual. I was busy. I was reading one of the fine publications laid before me on the table. I was reading a very interesting article about the recent sinking of a ship. I just forgot the name. Oh yes, the Titanic. But this is not the point. Completely not the point. The point is that before I was called for my appointment, I had the pleasure, the absolute pleasure of running into Jerry.
Misha? Yes? I remember once I was on a plane with your father and I asked him to switch seats, and he agreed. He then was telling me how he works for the government, which I said was interesting because my daughter works for the government. But what's also interesting is that I live in Quebec and my daughter lives in New York working for the senator, which is also interesting because he was telling me how he went to Toronto, which is not in Quebec, but is in Ontario. Anyways, then he said, "That's my son," and he pointed to you, and he said your name was Misha. So I said, "Hello, Misha," and he said, "Hello."
Jerome, the doctor will see you now. Jerry Miller.
Thank God!
Oh, it must be another Jerry. So as I was telling you, there was the jellyfish. It was basically the native Caribbean jellyfish. It's a very, very interesting species, but the only way to get rid of the sting is with vinegar. And we went to the store to get vinegar, but the store, it was closed. Kids opened at 10 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, that's usually when I have my...
Jack! How many newtons of force does it take to bash your skull against the coffee table? Jerry, would you say this is an oak or a pine coffee table?
Oak.
Oak. A lot of force. All right. Nice talking to you. See you. Bye.
So as I was saying,
the rest of the appointment was good. They drew my blood. Of course, when I had got out, needing to use the bathroom, you can guess who took the bathroom key. And then I left.